Hello, Mark Dietel here with Mark Dietel Realty, and my number one question for the recording of this video is, are we heading into a buyer's market? I got 5 key points to tell you why I believe we are, or we currently are, in a buyer's market. One of the very first things I wanted to talk about is when you're talking about a buyer's or a seller's market, how do we measure that? I mean, what are the metrics that we use to measure it? So I'm going to be talking about 5 categories, but you got to remember our market and the residential real estate market has been in such a state of flux really since the beginning of the pandemic. So if you go all the way back to the 2008-2009 crash, the residential real estate market, a number that we talk about from realtor standpoint is absorption rate. And from a realtor's perspective, that's the number of months of inventory that's on hand. So as realtors, we talk about that number the most, and we use that number as an indication of whether it's a buyer's market or whether it's a seller's market. So I'm going to say currently right now, I believe as of the end of July and going into August and actually going into September, we're in more of a buyer's market now than we have been probably in the last 5 years. And again, I'm going to comment really quick on the 5 metrics or the 5 numbers that I look at to give us an indication or for me to tell you why I believe that's the case. So number 1 is the absorption rate. Again, the same as the number of months of inventory on hand. So as of the end of July, our absorption rate was 1.6. So that's the number of months of inventory on hand. Now, that's still considered a seller's market because it's below 4 months. But you have to remember, it was just about 2.5 years ago or even less that was down like 2 weeks. So it was a half a month. So that 1.6 months of inventory on hand or absorption rate is actually 21% up over a year ago. Number 2, a really interesting statistic for this summer was the number of price changes, and those are increases in list price for a month. For the month of July of 2024, it was up 34% from a year ago. Actually, more price decreases on the listing price than there has been for this same period of time, or at least the same time of year in the last 5 to 6 years. So number 3, what's the active inventory? We all remember our economics class, or if you didn't have economics, its price is always a function of supply and demand. Well, the active inventory as of the end of July, so I'm talking about basically the midsummer point, was up 26%. So the inventory is increasing. So that's good for buyers. Number 4, another really important number is how fast is inventory selling? In other words, from the time it goes on the market, as far as listed, and from the time it gets an accepted contract, how long should that be? Zillow will use 21 days as kind of the cutoff. So if it gets to 21 days or more, which is basically 3 weeks to go under contract, Zillow says you're getting into a buyer's market. Well, we are at 13 days. Now that seems like a far distance from 21, but it's actually 63% up over a year ago. In other words, it increased from 8 days a year ago in July, as far as the midsummer of 2023, to 13 this year. So we're kind of on the way to that 21. So it's another important number to look at. And finally, I checked out our showing volume. In other words, how many showings are being booked for the current number of homes that are on the actual market. So we go to our showing service and we look at that. And I looked at 5 of the biggest counties here in central Indiana: Marion, Hamilton, Johnson. I checked Hancock, I checked Hendricks, I checked Boone. And if you look at all of those together, some of them are different than the others, but if you take all of those together, we're about 15% lower in the number of showings that are taking place today in the marketplace on the active inventory. So those 5 categories, those 4 key numbers, in my professional opinion, tells me that right now we're in more of a buyer's market than we have been in the last 5 years. Now remember, inventory is very micro driven. So you could be in a certain county, you could be looking in a certain neighborhood, a certain zip code, and you're going to want to get with a professional agent and ask them, hey, tell me about this market. Tell me maybe about my criteria, the type of home I'm looking at. Is this the type of home that's still probably there's high demand, there's still multiple offers? Or is this something I can look at and maybe really go at it from a perspective that it is a buyer's market? So I always want to encourage you, contact your professional real estate agent. If you need to get a hold of any of our agents here at Mark Dietel Realty, you can check us out online at markdietel.com. And of course, you can always call me direct at 317-441-7887. So now's a good time to buy. It's as good a time as ever. So give us a call.